Hello, and thanks so much for joining us for InFocus Recouched. I'm Ken Kingston.
And I'm Dora Amamuya. It's great to have you with us. You know what, Ken? I think we should call it.
Yeah?
It's our annual American Accent tribute episode this week.
Oh, okay. Does that mean we have to do American accents? Because I got myself a great Klondike prospector accent if he has need for it.
No.
No?
What I mean is that all of the InFocus highlights we're replaying today involve someone with an American accent.
Okay.
Matt Parra, who'll be sharing his personal story and passion for evangelism. James Standish, who's looking at the question, does free speech mean we have the right to say offensive things? And Naomi Streamer, who was tipped as a rising star in pop music, but turned her back on it all.
Wow, okay. Well, James Standish's accent is kind of a hybrid with Australian, really. And Naomi Streamer is Canadian, not American.
Yeah, Canada's still part of North America, Ken.
Oh, yeah, okay. I do kind of see your point. Let's start with Matt Parra and James Standish then.
It's great to have Matt Parra with us. He's the new director of evangelism for the Adventist Church in the northern area of New South Wales. Thanks so much, Matt, and welcome to not only the show, but also welcome to Australia.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Now, Matt, you grew up in Key West, Florida, a little island right at the end of Florida where Ernest Hemingway lived and Jimmy Buffett. Some people are familiar with his music.
That's
it's sort of all around there. What was it like growing up in Key West?
Oh, it was exciting because there's lots of children there.
Okay.
Yeah, tons of kids and fruit trees to climb and fish to catch.
That's right. It's sort of tropical,
it's
isn't
a tropical
it? It's a
island,
fabulous place. Now, as you grew up, once you got to high school, you grew up in the church.
I did.
But you kind of hit a rough patch when you got to high school.
I did. I just never really felt my deep need of a savior in any way. And the attractions of the world are pretty strong.
Sure,
for a kid.
Of course. And Key West sort of has a bit of a reputation as a party place.
That's right. That's right.
And so after high school, what did you do with your life?
Yeah, I really just wasted time for about 2 years and then joined the United States Navy.
What made you decide to join the Navy?
Yeah. When I graduated high school, I wasn't doing a whole lot with my life. And a lot of TV commercials at that time about the U.S. Navy and the purpose and the value that you could get out of it. And,
sort of patriotism and so forth.
Patriotism, idealism, and I just wanted my life to mean something. And after watching enough commercials, I decided that's where I needed to be.
They got you hook, line, and sinker.
Absolutely.
So you were in the Navy for one term of duty. You decided to, at the end of that term, get out. Why?
Yeah, I did my time, and I felt like a life in military service wasn't really for me. I was a little bit disenchanted with some of the things that I saw in the Navy. There's a lot of great men and a lot of great women who serve with honor. Sure. But there's also a lot that don't. And there was a lot of marital infidelity. Sure. There's a lot of drug abuse and alcohol abuse. And just a lot of just general negativity. Sure. I joined the Navy because I wanted to pay my dues to my country, and I didn't sense that a lot of people were there for that reason, and that really kind of got to me.
So it wasn't all officer and gentleman stuff?
Not altogether, no.
So you get out of the Navy. Yeah. What do you do next?
Yeah, I get out of the Navy, really frustrated with life, and I just don't really know what to do when I get out. I'm pretty depressed because my marriage had failed while I was in the Navy. Sure. Not sensing God's presence in my life in any way. I don't have meaning. I don't really want to get educated and live a normal life because I'm feeling that one day you grow old and you die and you leave your stuff to someone else, and in 10,000 years your life means nothing. And that sounds very, very negative, but that's kind of where I was. And
you're sort of in a nihilistic phase.
Very nihilistic, and I was thinking, if you don't know God, if your life doesn't have transcendent meaning, then what's the point? So I got into drug abuse and dancing and partying in the nightclubs, and it sounds kind of funny to even say now, but drugs became a way for me to get enjoyment out of life and to forget the mistakes that I had made, the pains that I had suffered. And it was just, I thought to myself, I'll live like this till I'm 40 and have a great life, and then I'll just die, because who wants to get old? Who wants to live an old life, getting wrinkly and falling apart and these kinds of
things. So obviously you're not dead yet.
I'm not dead yet.
So what happened?
The Lord rescued me. I went to to Mexico. And I went to Mexico on a mission trip with my mom's church. And it's kind of strange that a drug addict dealer goes to Mexico on a mission trip.
That's right, because Mexico's awash with drugs.
Yeah. So because my mom, she lied to me, and she tricked me, and I couldn't tell you the whole story, but she tricks me into going. And 2 weeks of service to other people, ministry to other people, leaving the drugs, behind.
Right.
Because I had to take care of some youth from my mom's church while I was there, and it just moved me. Doing work for others and contributing to the better good of someone else's life, it just planted seeds in my heart. Right. And it really gave me a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction that drugs didn't. And that became kind of like a catalyst for my conversion experience. Several other events happened leading up to a meeting that I went to. My mom dragged me to a series of meetings where the gospel was preached, and that began.
Was that the David Asherick meeting?
Yeah, David Asherick was preaching a meeting in Orlando, Florida. And I was one of the people. It was a very simple meeting. It was in a tent. It was old-fashioned. Right. It was hot. It was the middle of summer. And lo and behold, 700 people came. And
you were one.
I was one of them.
And it changed your life.
I was one of them, yeah.
So after you gave your life to Christ, you decided to go into evagelism.
Went into evangelism. I went to a school of evangelism that they had come from, and learned the blessing of sharing, really, and that the Christian experience is not an experience of just, me. It's an experience of giving and sharing and blessing others, and
So now you're here in Australia. I mean, this is an incredible story arc. You start off in Key West. You're off on the aircraft carrier with the U.S. Navy. Yeah. You find God after coming back after 2 years of sort of wasted years in the party scene. And now you're here in New South Wales.
In New South Wales.
What do you plan to do?
I just plan to learn and to grow and just to be as faithful as I can possibly be. I know that God is at work, and I believe that that's the case, and I see that that's the case in the lives of the constituents here, the church members here. I just want to assist the church in its mission, and I want to help people in their calling. God is working in people's lives, and they just oftentimes don't believe that that's the case, and I just want to really be an inspirer and an equipper.
Well, I think you're going to also find, Matt, that your experience, these wasted years, these 2 years in sort of party scene, there are a lot of people in this country who are caught in that trap of just alcohol and drug abuse and nihilism. Yeah. Your experience and your ability to share that, I think, is going to prove to be very, very valuable.
Amen. Yeah, I think so. It's amazing what God can do when we make ourselves available to Him. That's what I've sensed. He gives us gifts. He can use anyone, and I think.
And you're not a pastor either.
No, not officially. I carry the title of pastor. Okay. I'm not someone who's been trained in a traditional way. Right. I'm more along the lines of, I guess, a James or a John or a Peter. I'm not a Paul. And I think that there's a lot of Peters and Jameses and Johns out there who think that since they're not Pauls, that God can't use them, and since they don't have an academic background, that they can't be used. But that's just not true. It's just not true.
And it's great to have James Standish here, our religious freedom expert. How are you, James?
I'm doing well, Ken. It's great to be back.
Now, James, all around the world, in different situations, we have this discussion about free speech. Should I be allowed to blaspheme in a Muslim country? Should I be allowed to say something racist in Australia? Can you help us make sense of this?
Well, it's an interesting thing that you brought up, the issue of blasphemy laws, because when I did some work on behalf of religious freedom at the United Nations, that was one of the biggest issues on the table. Should we have a global standard that would allow for a ban on what they call the defamation of religion? In other words, saying things about religion that the people who are religious find offensive. And they do find it offensive. And I understand that. Look, you can insult me on a lot of different levels, and I'll roll with it. If you insult my faith...
It's very close to the heart,
It's very close to the heart, and it's very painful. And so that's an issue at the UN, a global scale. In Australia, we have an interesting issue on another free speech issue, and that is being insulted on the basis of race or national origin.
Sure.
And so Just recently, there's been a move in Australia to actually amend the Racial Discrimination Act, 18C of that Act.
This is the Attorney General, George Brandis, with his infamous quote, Australians should have the right to be a bigot.
Well, you know, once again, it's one of the most poorly chosen way of expressing an idea.
Sure.
The question isn't if people have a right to be bigots. The question is who gets to decide who is a bigot.
Yeah. And
secondly, do Australians have the right to speak freely? Now, that's actually a question that most of us would say, look, of course we've got a right to freely. We're in Australia, we're a liberal democracy. No, we don't.
Well, we don't have a Bill of Rights.
We don't have a Bill of Rights. We do have religious freedom, but that's sort of a standalone provision. And in fact, the High Court has looked at freedom of speech in Australia and found that we have a limited freedom of political speech. But if it's not a political statement, if it's not about the political system, then we don't have any kind of protection. So that's why we could have a provision like this in the first place, a provision that says that it's unlawful, which is an incredible step, to say something that is insulting to somebody. Well, you know, that is a pretty broad ban. Certainly it's a sort of ban that would never survive in a country like the United States that has a Bill of Rights that includes freedom of speech. The question that I think has to come out of this, because the Brandeis quote has sort of been out there, people are jumping on board saying, oh, for goodness sake, if we don't have this sort of thing, that we'll have a right to be Holocaust deniers and other sorts of horrible things.
Yeah, people think you should speak nicely and respectfully to one another.
Absolutely. Yeah. Whether we have this provision in the law or not, people's views on those issues will not change. It's societal views. The question is whether we want to actually imprison people who are ill-mannered or have views that are different than ours, or say things like, Holocaust deniers or what have you. Of course we don't want people being Holocaust deniers. It's a terrible thing. And we don't want people being racist and insulting people. All that kind of stuff is very hurtful. It's damaging. Just like I don't want people insulting my religion, incidentally.
Sure.
But what I don't want is a law that bans them. Why not? Because a better way of handling disagreements, a better way of society progressing, is to allow people to speak and allow people to respond. If somebody wants to attack my religion, as long as I have the ability to respond to that in a free and democratic society, I would much rather have that than having somebody, the government, deciding who gets to say what in what situation. I think the same thing goes broadly for speech across the boards. So as a general proposition, curtailing speech has a perverse impact of hurting the very goals we hope to progress. If you don't believe me, the United States has freedom of speech. Imagine what kind of country, how far Australia is away, for example, for electing someone from a racial minority. The United States has done it. Despite all the talk, despite all the problems, I think that we could learn from that example.
Wow. So I may not agree with what you're saying, but I'll defend your right to say it.
That's it.
That's the one. Thanks for your time today, James.
Thank you.
You know, I never realised, Dora, until we did that segment, that Australia has no legal right to free speech. Should we be worried about that, do you think?
Well, you know what? It's not like people are being locked up all the time for what they say.
True.
So I guess, the system's working.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, eh?
Yeah, something like that. Hey, let's go to an ad break now. Stay with us. There's more in Focus coming up soon.
Onions add great sweetness and flavour and a good base to any curry. Going to add some ginger, some garlic. Look at that, nice and chunky. So we've got our spices, gives it kind of a Sri Lankan feel. Add some tomatoes, tomato paste, some honey. Roasted vegetables in these kind of dishes are always great. If we add some creaminess to it, and that dish is now finished, ready to hit the table. I recommend you give it a try, and it's so easy.
We live our lives running around, rarely stopping to ask ourselves where we're going and what our final destination is. In the end, our lives become little more than routine. Step beyond and discover a path that offers comfort, love and hope. Visit hopeoffer.com/step beyond or call 1300 300 389 for your free copy today.
Father, I can't connect the dots through the little that I understand. What words can I say to reach you? How can I know that you are there, listening, hearing, caring. My words are broken, weak, and powerless. But I know your power is limitless. What can I say?
Planning your future can be a daunting task. What you want to do, who you want to be, and the road ahead can often be unpredictable. No one really knows what the future holds. That's just part of what makes it all so amazing. And that's why a great education matters. Because it doesn't just help you get a great job. It helps you prepare for what life can throw at you and live a great life. Avondale. It's education designed for life.
Hi, welcome back. Now, this next interview, Dora, was extremely hard one.
Really?
I reckon we organised an interview with Naomi Streamer maybe 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah, before we finally managed to get her in the studio.
Well, she does have an amazing story, so it was worth it, I reckon. Let's take a look.
Well, they called her the Diva of the Decade not so long ago, but she hasn't turned out to be so diva-ish so far. How are you, Naomi Streamer?
Oh, it's nice to be here, thank you.
And you're looking remarkably fresh as a daisy, considering you've done, what, over the last 6 weeks?
6 weeks.
How many?
32 concerts.
32 concerts in Australia over the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, well, we did have 2 weeks in New Zealand, and the remaining 4 weeks here, but it's been wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah, and we've been traveling up and down the coast, got to see a lot of the country, and met beautiful people. We've really enjoyed it.
Excellent. Now, I noticed by the way you say coast, that there's a little bit of Canadian there. Is that you were brought up in Nova Scotia, is that right?
Yes, I grew up in Canada, although I was born in the U.S. So, you know, there's the ongoing battle. Where is she from?
Yeah.
And
North America.
Yes,
is the answer to
North
that.
America. And I don't get upset whether I'm called either one. You know, I know there's a bit of a rival here with Kiwis and Aussies.
That's right.
But
friendly rivalry.
Yes, friendly and blessed. Yes, but it's good to be from 2 good countries.
Yeah. Now, as I mentioned before, you were at one stage named Commanding Diva of the Decade by Billboard magazine, you know, which sort of sets up all the charts and all that sort of stuff. That was what, 2006, 2007, around there? What was going on at that time that was propelling you to that sort of interest?
Well, we were just getting ready to release a big single with Carlos Santana, the guitar player. And we were getting rave reviews for that single. And, you know, the press was just all over it. They loved it. They thought it was going to be huge. They thought it was going to be great. And the fact that...
There was a great quote. Someone said, you know, remember the first time you heard Mariah Carey or whatever? Well, this
Whitney
is this
and
moment.
Celine.
Now, Whitney and Celine. Now you're hearing Naomi Streamer. She's going to be amazing.
Yeah. I mean, and that was just so exciting and so fantastic. And I remember people were calling me up, and at that same time, in Canada, it was the 2 national newspapers had similar quotes on their front pages. So it was very exciting, but at the same time, I've always been quite grounded and realistic. So when people are saying these wonderful things, I've always thought, well, this, you know, hopefully this gets other people excited to buy the album, and never really buying into it, never thinking, oh yeah, this is truth. This is absolute truth. Because I think as soon as you start that, you're going to really get your head up in the clouds and need somebody to come and pop it.
Yeah.
So.
Now, you signed an album deal with Epic, which it's a
Sony Records,
a Sony label, at the age of 18.
Yeah.
People saying all these things about you, how you were going to be the rising star, but somehow it never quite seemed to, I don't know, break through in the way that you hoped it would. Why was that?
I mean, there were so many, I call them once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, just huge things. And then right at the last second, all the hype was created, everything was there, the platform was there, and it would always fall through at the last second. You know, and being young, it was really difficult. I think any time in your age it's difficult. When you have a dream, when it's on track, when everything is perfect, and then it just doesn't go the way you would hope or want. And it happened several times, and I kept getting the opportunities, and they kept being bigger opportunities and more exciting opportunities, and then the same thing would happen. And I just kept asking God, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this to me, you know? Why are you bringing these things into my life just to take them out of my life? And the whole time I really didn't realize that I had never stopped to ask God if He had a plan for me.
Okay.
And so I was just trying to, I guess, manipulate might be a harsh word, but I was really trying to push my agenda through with my dream. And that's kind of how we're raised, especially being American, where it's, like
the American
dream.
You can do anything you set your mind. Just follow your heart. There's a Walt Disney song that comes at about that point. Yeah.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And so you grow up with these big aspirations. And even being a Christian, sometimes you forget to say, wait a minute, does God have a plan for me that might not be exactly what my plan is? And sometimes, ultimately, I ended up walking away from my dreams that I was chasing and big opportunities, and it did come to a bit of a head for me.
Before we get to that, I just wanted to ask, do you think, because you were a Christian at this point, you had a Christian commitment, I wonder if maybe your Christian principles perhaps sort of got in the way in some ways of reaching that high success. I mean, I think of some of the other female artists who were around at the time, Shakira, Nelly Furtado, even Beyonce was sort of starting off her career.
Yeah.
And all these ladies, I don't know how to put it politely, don't mind sort of...
Right, the compromise.
Doing a very sort of sexualized image of the way they present themselves, and there's a bit of a party scene that's involved with drugs and all that sort of stuff. Were those sort of areas that you wouldn't go in? Was that a limiting factor for you, do you think?
Well, everyone I worked with knew that I was the Christian girl, but I think it was much deeper than that. I think it was more of a battle that was going on. And I, at the time I thought it was evil forces that were stopping these deals from happening. Now I look back and I think it was God that was stopping it. Because if any one of the $1 million deals and the huge, this is going to be the album of the year, and if any one of those had happened, I know I would not be where I am today. I wouldn't be spiritually where I am. I probably would have ended up being like so many of these other artists that you've mentioned, where they start off in the faith, they wander away from the faith, and even though they might profess certain levels of faith, it's really a life that's centered around them. And I think that's a really dangerous place to get when life revolves around us. And I always say we're not created for adoration, we're created to give praise. And so I think it would have been a really slippery slope. I think it would have been a terrible demise for me. And I look back now and I see so clearly that God's hand was in each situation that just pulled the rug at the last second.
Wow.
And it got to the point where it became so obvious, where it did get to the point where people were saying, are you going to choose this God thing, or are you going to choose your career?
Wow.
And this has to be the number one thing you're doing.
Yep.
And God will understand.
Wow.
I remember having that conversation, and that's when I knew that it was the intensity of whose side am I going to be on was getting stronger and stronger. And I think we all get to that in our lives at some point where we will have to make a decision. Are we choosing God, or are we going to choose the world?
Wow. Now, there was a particular incident where you were in a recording sort of environment, and this particular gentleman, was it Puff Daddy's chauffeur or something?
It was a Puff Daddy's studio in New York City.
Yeah.
And it was a chauffeur for the studio.
Yeah.
And he approached me in a hallway, and he'd had a dream about me. It was just such an odd situation. And his dream was the story of my life, and then this proclamation of, you have to make a decision, and then saying my prayers to me of, you keep asking God why. All your dreams are there, and then they crumble into dust. You want to know why it's happening? And he kind of put before me what had been given to him in this dream, which was, you are standing at a crossroad in your life, and you're either going to choose to continue down the path you've been going with all your big plans and your dreams, or you're going to walk away from your dreams and you're going to pursue God. And if you give up everything for God, all your dreams will come true. And I look at that, and it's so funny because people often think, oh, if I follow God's way, He's going to force me into something I don't want. It's not going to be as fun. It's not going to be as cool. But the fact of the matter is, This is God, the person who created you, who wants the best for you, who wants you to be happy. He's not going to design a plan for you that you're going to be miserable in. He's going to design a plan for you that is going to bring you joy and happiness and ultimately the most fulfillment.
And have you found that to be the case?
Absolutely. I look at my life now and I'm petrified. I'm actually terrified of the thought of what if I would not have listened? What if I would have chosen my path again at the ultimate, because there was one more opportunity that came after that. And it was working with a huge producer. And I look at that and go, if I wouldn't have walked away when I did, I wouldn't have met my husband. I wouldn't have everything in my life that I wake up every day now and go, I'm blessed and I'm so happy and I'm just kind of overjoyed with what God has done, and I can't give enough gratitude back because of what God has brought for me. And I look at what my plan was and my dreams were, and it was just so silly compared to what God's plan has been.
Well, Naomi, let's just have a quick listen to just some of your music. There's a particular clip which you can see on YouTube, it's there. But yeah, let's just have a quick listen to that now.
You gave me strength when I had none, to lift my head and shake the dust. Oh, heaven knows how I owe you my life. You knew then everything that I know now. Oh, you knew me when I couldn't find my faith, I couldn't keep from falling down. You were the light I didn't know I had, just waiting to be found. You had my heart.
Wow, thanks for that. So when I listen to that, I hear maybe a little bit of Celine, a little bit of Jewel, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I loved Jewel when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Oh, I was such a big fan. And Celine. Celine was like, Canada. Oh, Celine.
Is this track a part of your current album?
It is. It is. It's From Hope That Breaks the Dark. And if you go to my website, you can find all the places where that is available.
Yep.
NaomiStreamermusic.com.
.com, there you go.
Yes.
Check it out. Hey, thanks so much, Naomi. I really appreciate your time, and thanks for coming to Australia and visiting.
Thank you.
She was really lovely, wasn't she?
Oh, yeah, and so easy to talk to. And Dora, after I saw her music videos before I met her, and on those videos I got this impression that she was some sort of 6-foot-tall Amazonian warrior, but in person she was actually quite petite.
Yeah, no. Well, the camera lies, Ken, except when it comes to us, because we are 6-foot Amazonian warriors, aren't we?
Oh, I wish. Well, that's it for InFocus Recouched this week. Thanks so much for your company.
Yeah, don't forget all our videos are online at our website, record.net.au. See you next time.
God bless.